wanted to share a story today about using our legacy chart viewer in Epic. I was seeing a 12-year-old girl last week, and she was there with the grandmother, and the grandmother had asked about an abnormal newborn metabolic screen that she had done as a baby. Well, I had only started caring for her about 3 or 4 years ago, and so I wasn't familiar with it. So I was able to go into, right during the visit, into our legacy chart viewer, and I was able to easily go through her old records. I was able to find the consult note from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I was able to quickly review it, and then I was also able to print it out and give a copy to the grandmother, so we knew that everything was okay with the child. There was no concerns and no follow-up needed. So it was a great story of how the legacy chart viewer really worked right during the patient care visit, and I was able to care for the patient and not really add a whole lot of extra time to the visit.
We chose DRIS and CITI as we realized that we needed a solution to deprecate about a dozen EMR systems that were being kept around for archival purposes. So this was somewhat of a financial move for us to be able to decom those systems, but additionally so that we could provide a seamless experience for our providers to be able to have access to the legacy information. The integration within Epic Hyperspace is going to be an incredible benefit. Currently, we have providers that are in Epic, but to access their legacy data that is not in Epic, they're having to go to a different EMR system and actually go through the UI, do searches, and it's very cumbersome and time-consuming. DRIS will give them the ability to have in Epic patient context searches, so that when they are working with a particular patient in a chart, that they're able to click a link to immediately pull up the archived information for those patients. From an application perspective, DRIS is incredibly intuitive, and we expect that there's not going to be much of a learning curve for the users of the product, making their experience much more simple than it is today. Thus far, our experience with CITI has been fantastic. Not only I, but others in the organization have called out CITI as not just a vendor, but a real partner in this initiative. And it's been a refreshing experience. They are very engaged, from the project management, technical resources, QA validation teams. It's been a pleasure to work with them, and again, anytime we've had a need or a question, they've been incredibly responsive.
Implementing a new EHR system for your hospital requires support and maintenance of legacy applications while archiving legacy application data to reduce license and maintenance costs. CITI Healthcare's data retirement and interoperability solution makes migrating to a new EHR and accessing archived data simple, efficient, and affordable. DRIS is a HIPAA-compliant, lightweight, secure, vendor-neutral application designed to archive electronic, protected health information from all major enterprise EHRs, including financial, clinical, payer, human resources, and supply chain data. DRIS normalizes migrated data and eliminates duplicate efforts for EHR migration. DRIS includes an extensible authentication model, supporting role-based access and data-level permissions and enterprise-level AES encryption. DRIS enables providers to access clinical data for decision support in patients' context, release of information for HIM, legal and compliance for audits, and for AR workdown. DRIS makes your migration and data archival simple. Contact us today to learn more.
Hal Baker. I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer for WellSpan Health. I've been a practicing physician here in WellSpan for over 23 years. We're located in South Central Pennsylvania. We span 5 counties here, and we treat our local communities. We had previously been on a variety of different electronic health records as different hospitals and related medical groups have come together. And in 2017, we went from just about everything but Epic to everybody being on Epic. And we had a lot of leftover systems that we needed to retire. And in doing that, we had concerns about how we were going to get our data onto some sort of archive. As we looked around the country, many systems were facing a challenge in that they didn't know how to get rid of the old system. It was in read-only mode, but it still needed to be supported. The hardware needed to be upgraded, and it needed to be maintained until that last baby that was born into the old system had turned 18 and had their 7 years and then could be sunsetted. That was too long for us, and so we looked for a solution and had a great development opportunity with CITI to be their first customer in developing the DRIS. This has allowed us to move data from Allscripts, Cerner, McKesson, soon Meditech, onto the record and be immediately available to clinicians in one click from in the context of a record. As a practicing physician, I've gotten to use this myself and been able to pull up a 12-year-old EKG or an 11-year-old path report very quickly. It works and it's easy to use because you're already in the patient chart. This has also allowed us to turn off access, drop support, and eventually move out the servers of the old systems. And we're estimating that that's well over $7 million for this year, and we hope to see over $10 million in the coming years here as we retire, sunset, and move out those servers so that our very expensive floor space can be used for more important things like our ongoing systems. This consolidated approach was not necessarily easy, but we learned a lot of lessons, and we know CITI learned a lot of lessons with us, and we think that you'll have an easier time than we did because we know each time we've done it, we've found it's gotten better and better.
Jeff Nicholson. I'm the Vice President and Chief Medical Information Officer for WellSpan Health. And I had a direct involvement in retirement and ongoing retirement of 5 major EHRs and consolidation to a single vendor. And one of the things that I've been impressed with the DRIS is the ability to take that information from 5 proprietary systems and distill it down in a user interface that's easy for a physician or a nurse to use regardless of what their baseline is. Each system that we archive is moving considerably faster and smoother, which is reducing the time it takes to archive the next system as well as reducing the cost. And the system is much more flexible than I had anticipated. I have to admit, at the beginning of the project, I was a little skeptical. I think each of us as physicians who work in an individual application are so ingrained into our workflow and emotionally attached to the physical display of the data that we have trouble conceptualizing it in a different system, and absolutely exceeded my expectations for the usability of the DRIS. The fact that we were able to enable single sign-on from Epic and keep patient in context so we avoid an additional login, an additional lookup has just been fantastic.